All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you again for joining us. My name is Leticia Preciado, and I'm the Parent Engagement Coordinator here at Pittsburgh Unified School District. Before we get started, again, if you're just logging in, if you can please take a moment to sign in using the link that's in the chat. Y si está buscando traducción en español, por favor, seleccione donde dice interpretación en la parte de abajo de su pantalla y seleccione español. Thank you again to each of you for joining us. And joining me this evening is Mr. Martin Reese from the Cope Family Support Center, who will be doing this evening's presentation. Welcome, Martin.
Thank you, Leticia. Thank you. And welcome, everyone. I thank everyone for attending this evening. If you wouldn't mind, do me a favor, inside the chat, list one thing you love most about your child. One thing you love most about your child. And as you set up, I'm going to go to share my screen. Virginia, I believe you are muted because this is a webinar. So again, if you don't mind, please type in one thing inside the chat that you love about your children. There is a question and answer box. So if you look down on your screen, you're gonna have a list of icons. Please feel free to use that question and answer box. And I will be taking questions at the end of this. There is a lot of information, so I want to encourage you, if you have a pencil and paper, to take some notes. And I know that we can provide the slides for you at the end in case you miss anything, but there will be a lot of information that gets covered. And it is really important to me that you guys get some of the things that you really want out of this conversation. I want to thank you guys. I see kind hearts, right? Wit and helpfulness. I appreciate that. Sometimes we don't always recognize the beauty of our children, right? There are things that are just unique about them that we really love. And as they grow up and we begin to grow concerned, we forget how important exploration is with them. So tonight, as we begin to look at this discussion, we're going to look at friends, peers, and dating relationships for you guys, right? My name is Mark, and I have been with Cope Family Services for about 3 years now. I provide supporting father involvement classes, seminars, these webinars, and triple P classes for parents. In fact, I'll be doing a group triple P class starting on the 28th of this month. It is an opportunity for parents to come and learn how to work out different aspects of their parenting. So it's a great thing. Cope offers many types of classes: anger management, and one-on-one coaching. So it's just something to consider. When we think about friends, peers, and dating relationships, I know it is a challenge for parents to imagine their kids dating, right? Things we're going to cover tonight are talking to your teen about healthy dating relationships. We're going to look at 10 signs of healthy relationships so that we have some idea of what that looks like. We're also going to look at 10 relationship red flags because oftentimes, even as adults, right, we don't recognize red flags even as they're taking place, and sometimes not until much later. So being able to identify some red flags will be key. And then we're going to cover 5 tips that you can use for talking with your teen. Along with this, we'll explore the importance of friends for our teens. It's important for us as the parents and adults to know what's important to our teens, right? Not just from the perspective that we may be coming from in remembering when we were teens, but what it means and looks like today, right? So we want to encourage positive peer relationships. We want to look at some of those problems that they may encounter, what to do if a teen has a problem, right? How to talk and communicate to them, points to remember, and then we'll have question time. You'll also get a chance to watch or listen to videos, because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't the only one speaking, but you get a chance to hear things from the perspective of children who are teens, right? Dealing with some of these things on their own. So some of the things that we learned that are important to our children, right, are things that they relate to, right? So I remember, right, in my own personal experience, when I played football, I had a group of friends on the team, right, that I made friends with, but also if they played in other sports like baseball and track, because I ran track and played baseball, then we were friends on those teams as well. But I had additional friends that didn't participate in any sports. They may have done music. I'm a musician, right? But there were things that we related to. And I was not a perfect team, right? I have to be honest, I was not a perfect team. There were things that I got into, right, with different peers at the time. Drinking was one of those things, right? And some other exploration things that teens get into, staying out late at night, challenging curfews, things like that. So you want to be sure that you understand why your children are choosing certain friends and why all their friends don't necessarily fit neatly in one category, right? My youngest daughter played the flute in high school and in college. She wound up playing in the orchestra, and she had a few friends there, but the majority of her friends were not a part of that group, right? They didn't participate in the marching band, and they did not do some of the other things she enjoyed doing, right? So you want to make sure that you understand how those friends relate to them and why they're important. So problems from peer relationships, mixing with a bad crowd, right? When we're young, and even sometimes as adults, we don't easily recognize a bad crowd, right? Some may try and use a superficial thing, such as tattoo, the way a person dresses, and think that that person is a bad influence, right? But that's not necessarily so. So we have to be able to help our children to recognize what a bad crowd is in relationship to them, not me, not my process of thinking, right? But in how they think and view what is good or bad. Okay. And so as parents, we can help support and shape and influence what children deem as good and bad. So our children are always watching us, always listening to us, and they observe how we treat some of our own peers, right? They observe how some of our peers treat us. And so when our friends, right, treat us with respect, so I don't smoke. And so my friends who smoke, they don't smoke in my house. And somebody one time to me, who wasn't a close friend, said, I don't understand how you can tell a grown person they can't smoke. And I said, I don't tell them they can't smoke, right? Um, I don't smoke. And so out of respect for me, they don't smoke in my house. Now, when we're out, right, and we're out in public and there's a place to smoke, they smoke and everything is fine. And so we want to be able to help our children to determine and understand that, yeah, this is your friend, but your friend should respect the decisions and choices you make, not try and get you to do things that they do, right? So I have friends, again, who weren't athletes, who were into some things I wasn't into. We hung out because we enjoyed each other's company, or we may have liked artwork or comic books. I often had comic book groups as a kid, and we did things. We would practice drawing some of the comics, but a couple of those guys wound up in heavy drugs, and I did not get into that, right? But again, they respected me enough to not even offer me that. So we want to make sure that we help our children with that. Later on, we'll look at some things that we can do, right, to help get our kids out of a tricky situation, because there are some things that we can help our kids with when they feel like, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do, I need help, right? We can help. But we're going to need to make sure that we're non-judgmental when we do that. Okay. So let's listen. We're going to listen to a couple of videos of what some of the kids have to say.
My favorite platform is usually Instagram.
Probably Snapchat and regular iMessage on iPhones.
We text a lot.
Texting, text message, text or group chat with my friends.
Group text messages.
Facebook Messenger.
They're always on it. I'm always with my friends, but when I'm not with them, I'm always talking to them on social media.
I definitely say sometimes it's beneficial because you go home and you might have had an argument with your sibling or your mom and you just need to talk to your friend, or you might need help with homework or something.
Being able to always be just like a phone call or text message away from each other allows us to kind of establish a relationship that's closer.
Reaching out to the person right when you need them, so that you don't have to wait until you see them at school to talk to them. That definitely brings us closer.
Texting is like the easier alternative. Take out your phone and communicate with someone.
There are definitely things that maybe I wouldn't tell anyone in real life that I feel more comfortable telling them on social media or online, because it's not the same as saying it to someone's face as it is to text it.
I know that my friends, or not even just my friends, but my family or anybody I can talk to, I know that they are available to me.
Yeah, I never really feel depressed or anything like that, just because there's always somebody to talk to and always somebody that's there for you. That's kind of a good thing about social media.
I could not imagine what it would be like if I couldn't contact them so quickly. Our lives are so integrated with social media and contacting other people that I don't think I could imagine not contacting them.
There can be an invasion of space and privacy over not just social media, but all forms of modern technology. We have each other's location 24/7.
Yes, there's been people that have contacted me for multiple times that have just been constant and annoying, that have just gone on my nerves.
If there's someone that is constantly reaching out to you and you don't want that person to be contacting you, that can be irritating and it's kind of a hassle.
I got my phone taken away from my friend texting me too much. I had to turn it off completely. I had to turn it off when I was in class because it just started making so much noise.
I've had a friend who's contacted me way too much, and one of the downsides is that I kind of avoid that friend in real life and at school, so they feel a little neglected, and it kind of hinders our friendship.
There's kind of like a pressure that like if one of us doesn't like respond or like keep texting, we're gonna like not talk again.
I've had a friend contact me too much to the point where I've asked them to give me some boundaries and some space. I would usually tell them in a respectful manner.
Over text, you either like just flat out say it or you kind of ghost them.
I used to have a friendship where we would text nonstop, like we would get to the point where we get irritated with one another. That was like nonstop, like where you at, where you at, where you at, what are you doing, what are you doing, why are you not hanging out with me, why are you not that? It got to the point where like, leave me alone.
Like sometimes we could be like too much part of each other's lives, and it's not really good because we're kind of taken away from our own lives because we're constantly looking at theirs.
In the beginning, some people don't understand boundaries. I would have to constantly communicate to them that I have my boundaries, even through online, through social media. I don't find it as much as a problem because I've practiced it and I've learned to get better at it.
I do believe that technology leads to boundary issues. I feel like technology has created a sense of a really tight-knitted community, but in a way it's too tight.
I feel that when we have conversations online, it kind of takes away the magic from talking face to face.
It definitely can get a little overwhelming, and it makes it difficult to hold conversations in real life because you talk about everything over social media or through your phones. And then if we do talk about something, it's normally like social media related, or we have to like pull out our phones to talk about it, so you don't really get to be in the moment with your friend because you're on your phone.
Right. So that is one area in which we get a chance to, when our children are feeling like they can't control their boundaries. Recently, well, not recently, last year, I learned that there is a setting on my phone. It's called Do Not Disturb, right? And it was amazing that when I found this, it meant I could turn it on whenever I wanted to, or I can schedule it to come on. So for me, digitally wise, my world turns off at 7 o'clock digitally, because that's what I chose, right? Our children can learn to choose the same thing. Setting up boundaries can often feel difficult because we feel people won't respect our boundaries, right? Or we feel that trying to set those boundaries says to people, I don't love you enough to make you the exception, right? But we want to make sure that we are comfortable with our boundaries. So yeah, so there's pros and cons to everything, Leticia, right? And we know that, for example, the Senate here in the United States is looking at limiting and setting an age standard for social media, right? The thing that I think everyone has to consider on an individual basis is, for some children as well as some adults, it is their only form of communication, right? As you listen to the kids, they get a chance to talk about all kind of things. Some kids have homework teams set up, right? Where they do homework at a certain time, and somebody checks in and says, how are you doing? Did you get Mrs. Jennifer's class homework done, right? How are you doing? Do you need any help, right? And then of course we know the flip side of social media are the children who wind up getting teased and made fun of. And it has led to not only physical abuse, but to suicide and self-harm, right? And so part of in building those peer relationships is, as we move forward, will be helping children to identify when people are not a real friend or a good peer to associate with. So we'll get a chance to see some of that. So here's another video, right? And this one, the teens are going to talk about their relationship rules, right, as far as dating.
All week long, we've been hearing from local students in Teen Talk. We thought this school vacation week was a great time to find out about the issues affecting our local high school students. Today, we are finding out what goes on with the teen dating scene when I asked Maddie, Brooke, Tess, and Alex about their views on relationships. All right, we've got the guys and the girls. What do you consider, what do you look for when you're dating someone?
I'm not into the whole like cat fight kind of girl. I like someone who can just relax with me and always just keep me smiling. I don't have to worry about anything with her, and I'm just really happy.
Yeah. How about you guys? What do you look for in your partner if you will be dating?
A big thing is someone who doesn't want you to change for them. If someone doesn't like something about you, then that's it. You know, you don't like me, that's it, sorry. If they want you to change, not gonna happen.
Yeah, good point. Accepting who I am. This is who I am. That's it. And someone who I can talk to. I love expressing myself. So if you can sit there and listen to me babble, more power to you.
How about, have you ever dated someone like just for the heck of it? Just because you thought that that was someone that you felt like you should be dating?
Do like middle school relationships count? Is that a relationship?
We can go back that way.
Yeah, I had one girl who liked me, and I didn't really like her that much, but she kept liking me, so I went out with her, and it lasted like a week. It was nothing.
Yeah, no, I think that kind of stuff I've experienced that, like as you said, like kind of like short-lived, like not really like it's not like a relationship. It's like, oh, like I like you. It's like 6th grade, like oh, like yeah.
Put up an away status about them.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, okay, you're certain levels of dating. I mean, go through this whole like talking and dating and talking as opposed to talking.
Oh, you know, it just makes things more complicated. Like you either like me or you don't, and then you date me or you don't.
So
cut this talking.
Wow. How do guys see talking?
I would say talking is like you haven't like really like hung out like not that you've like never met each other, but I mean like you haven't like hung out like as like a couple.
Okay.
But like you're like flirting and like you kind of get that like that's where it's headed, or hopefully both parties understand that. But yeah, it's like you haven't like decided to like hang out like as like a romantic like thing.
So one-on-one sort of.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, with our whole technological society, talking is like the new dating. People will go on like blind dates like way back when, the olden days, before cell phones, but we have talking, and that's how you get to know each other. You don't go on like all these dates with people to get to know each other. First you talk, then you date.
Yeah, I'd say like texting has become like a really big thing in like the kind of like
part of the relationship?
Yeah, exactly.
I know, my mom's always like, when I was in high school, I don't know how you do it, because like I had to wait for the phone until after dinner, and I'm like, what?
Now, how about rumors? How often do you hear rumors of dating, cheating, hookups?
Every day.
It's constant.
Multiple times.
Too much to handle.
You just have to roll with the punches. If it's wrong, eventually the truth will come out. Just keep defending yourself, but I mean, if it's wrong, it's wrong.
Yeah, that too. And I go to a really small school, so literally everyone knows everything about everybody, whether you want them to or not, or eventually they'll find out.
I mean, who knows about the rumors?
Well, eventually, the teachers know too. Oh, yeah.
Teachers are very good at like picking up on things.
Oh, yeah. But I mean...
Scary.
Yeah, they're more intuitive than we think. They hear a lot more in class, in the hallways.
Seriously.
And tune in tomorrow where we will be checking in with the teens to find out where they see themselves in 5 to 10 years. And for more information on these teens, you can head to WPRI.com.
All right, I like that. I kind of chose that video because I've had an opportunity to come across teens that are just very mature, right? But their parents are extra involved. I did some work with the Salvation Army about a year ago, and I was working kind of coaching some kids who were in high school, getting ready for some life skills to see what work was like, things like that. And there was a young couple And they didn't let on that they were a couple. In fact, when I kind of approached them, the young lady says, "Oh, that's my brother," and then she laughs. And so a couple of days later, I said, "Well, you and your brother have a unique relationship," and they laughed, and they said, "No, we're dating," right? And I thought, dating, and then so I asked the question, "What do your parents think?" And she says, "Oh, my dad loves him. They hang out and do different things." And he's like, "Yeah, she sometimes spends time with my mother and my sister." And so they were there and they had the support of the family. Not only that, they really supported each other academically in school and making sure that they have an opportunity to go to college where they want to go to college and study. And I asked them, so what happens if one goes to college far away and another? And they were like, well, life is a long time. So we may have a chance to meet back up again. And I thought that's very mature discussion. And then I have a great example and a great niece. My nephew and his wife, I'm very proud of them and how they raised their daughter. She has been dating the same young man since she was 15 years old. She is getting ready to graduate from Irvine, University of Irvine, Southern California. This year, she'll be graduating early. He's still going to school, but they still communicate, and they had a great relationship, right? They have a great relationship, but the parents all communicate and are involved. So part of what helps that is being able to talk to children early, but establishing some trust, right? So sometimes we have to establish some trust among children, right? So encouraging positive peer and dating relationships is important, right? Taking an interest in your teens, friends, and peers, right? Talking to them about the people they spend time with genuine interest, right? Not to be judgmental, but to be non-judgmental, right? It doesn't matter if this one rides a motorcycle and appears like they don't have anything going for him in life. Just how is John doing today? How's Sarah doing today, right? What are you guys up to? What's been going on, right? Oh, well, that's good, right? I did that with my children, and for me, it was priceless. Just to have the conversation where they shared with me things that was going on, right? The breakups, the things that kids talked about in the video, where somebody cheated on this person and so on and so forth. And I thought to myself, that you guys are teens, you're not even close to getting married. But as the video demonstrated, our children are far more mature and maybe a little more prepared than we are aware, right? Because it's our children and we kind of always view them as children and don't recognize that they are making wise and mature decisions, that they live in a complex world. And we may need to kind of help them through some of this. So getting a chance to know some of the people that hang out with them and some of the things they like to do when they hang out, right, becomes important. Also, you want to make sure that if there's a moment, right, where you're just having a casual conversation and there's some reluctancy or resistance to talk about a person, don't push the issue. Relax and kind of let it go, right? And come back another time and ask same thing, how is Johnny doing, right? And they may say, well, I don't want to talk about it. Okay, can we talk about it later? And they say, well, no, you can share. I've always shared, well, I'm a little concerned that, everything's not okay with Johnny. And if I can be of any help or service, let me know, right? But I understand, because you want to make sure they have their space and their privacy, and they trust that I don't have to always tell you everything, right? So you want to be able to do that. So ask questions with these 10 signs in mind. So there are 10 signs of healthy relationships. And you want to make sure that there's some respect. So even in a friendship, or if your child is courageous and says, oh, you know, this is my boyfriend or my girlfriend, right? You can say, oh, that's great, right? And so how do you like that? And they can tell you, okay. So you guys have mutual respect for each other? Yeah, okay, well, great. I'm glad that's working for you, right? How are you guys communicating on a regular basis, right? What do you guys enjoy doing together? Just having some nice conversation where you get to touch on some of these points, right? What do your friends think about Johnny? Oh, you know, they don't really like him. Huh, how come they don't like him? What did they say, right? So the friends not liking Johnny may be a red flag, right? It may be the type of thing that says, hey, if the friends don't like him, maybe something else is going on. But you get a chance to go through and ask questions, right, with these 10 things in mind, right? Is Johnny a nice guy? Yeah, okay. Do you guys have a class together or anything like that? They may say no. Oh, we met while volunteering over at the pet center. Oh, okay, that's great. So he likes pets. Yeah, he likes pets. He wants to be a veterinarian. Okay. You know, so you get a chance to learn something about that person without being around them. And it helps to build your relationship with your child and what they're going through so that you do get that trust. So this is a quote from Dr. Wilder, who in fact created those 10 steps that we just looked at. The goal is to be in a healthy relationship. How happy we are in our relationship has a powerful influence on our health, right? So if we're in a good, healthy relationship, you'll see your kids will be eating good. They'll be laughing, having fun, right? Still making plans. If your child suddenly loses an appetite, something may have gone wrong. Time to ask a question. How are you doing? I don't want to talk about it. Okay. Right? Give it a couple of hours a day. Is everything good? You feeling better now? Right? Maybe they'll talk to you, maybe they won't. It's not something that they have to do, but you want to share with them that, hey, I love you. I just want you to be happy. You know, it's good for you. It's good for me. My son says, Gouda. It's Gouda for you. It's Gouda for me. Right? So look for ways to meet other parents. You guys are here tonight. I imagine many of you share schools, right? Many of you are in a similar community, may even be neighbors, right? So it's a good time to kind of meet each other and talk and, you know, just kind of, I don't know, hang out, maybe create a bridge club, but do some things where you get a chance to talk. Nextdoor, right? I love my Nextdoor app. My neighbors are on there. They're always telling me different things going on, sharing videos, stuff like that. But try to get involved with the other parents, because sometimes you can lean on each other, right? A parent may say, you know what, my daughter is just not talking to me. I don't know what's going on. And a parent, oh, you know what? She was over at my house yesterday and she was talking with a group of kids. And I guess there's something going on in the class, right? And so they can share that. And it may help put your mind at ease that, oh, it's just something going on in class. But we have to remember our teenagers, right, are planning their future. So sometimes things going wrong in the class can cause stress in other places. And so you don't want to let them know that you went behind their back and got information, but you do want to let them know I'm in your corner. If you need help with anything, if there's concern about your class, your grades, getting into the university you've been applying to, let me know and I'll do whatever I can to help you out, right? But making a connection with other parents. Sometimes we need to do that. Now, it doesn't have to be an intimate relationship, right? A text every now and again. Hey, Fred, Peter, Joan, how you guys doing? Right? How are the kids doing? Great. All right. Have a great weekend. Hey, plan on doing some barbecuing at the park. If you guys want to join us, it would be great. Whole family, come along. If you want to know what to bring, send me a text and I'll tell you whatever the wife's not going to make, or however you work that out, right? Just make the connection and get together. It helps our kids to see, right, how we work in those types of relationships. Show some interest in the social activities. So we saw some of the kids talk about how they get annoyed by a whole lot of texts and things like that. Always remind them that they can silence them if they choose to, right? That they can turn their phone off. And I'm going to share with you because it's important if our kids feel like they're in a jam that they can contact us and let us know, right? This isn't working for me. And so they have this thing I did a little different, but you have your child can send a code, right? They can send a text to you that's called an X or a 9. I wouldn't do 911 because initially when I set that up and my daughter sent one, it had me scared to death. But they can put in a code and send it to you, and you can text them or call them, hey, I really kind of need you to come home, right? And it will help them to get out of a bad spot. And I'll cover that again as we move through these. So here's a solution for some positive peer pressure. Now, this solution is about using peer pressure in a positive sense. This is a pretty good TED Talk.
I wanted to talk today about positive peer pressure and how it can transform our schools and our education system. I wanted to start off with a quick story about my husband and I. This is my husband, Ian. He's cute. We met about 6 years ago. And of course, in early relationships, we talk about our childhood and our adolescence. Now, Ian and I had very different experiences in adolescence. Ian was a rapper. He was an athlete and was incredibly popular. So, obviously, he frequented many parties and social gatherings. I, on the other hand, was your quintessential nerd. I was awkward, glasses, braces, the whole 9 yards. So the kind of peer pressure that we experienced as adolescents was pretty different. That was probably what Ian experienced. This was probably what I experienced. Nerd peer pressure. Now, I was always enamored by the idea of peer pressure. It's a subtle thing. It's not what most people think it is. Peer pressure happens because you're around a certain group. It's not that they're telling you that you have to do drugs or alcohol. It just is the fact that you're around certain people. Adolescents are 6 times more likely to drink alcohol if their peers do so. And so it can be incredibly powerful. Now, I had a question. Can peer pressure work to enhance academic and social-emotional skills? And even more importantly, can positive peer pressure be a norm in schools, or even popular? And so I came to the idea of something that I like to call trust circles. How did this start? Well, I put some students into groups, heterogeneous at the time, and taught them social-emotional skills for working with each other. I encouraged them to have difficult conversations and encouraged them to encourage each other. It started in one classroom. And in one classroom, we saw some pretty incredible results. Kids were really helping each other in both academics and character. And so we tried it with an entire grade. Because those students had learned everything, all the social-emotional skills, we carried it on to 5th and 6th grade. And now, at KIPP Infinity Middle School, it's in the entire school. We had effectively created a norm of positive peer pressure. This is a 5th grade KIPP circle. We call them KIPP circles now. This group is very diverse, academically, behaviorally, some class clowns, and some nerds. But they love each other. Here are some things that they say. We help each other. We help each other by coming up for lunch and helping each other with our homework. We created study buddies to call each other each night and make sure we completed that homework. That's Camelia and Georgiani. Justin says, my trust circle helps me to check my math. If I had an answer wrong, they would tell me it was wrong, and I would go back and fix it. If I got it right, they would say, good job, Justin. Thought that was an interesting detail he threw in there. But they do. They effectively learn how to encourage each other and want to do it. Unfortunately, many schools believe that when students don't behave or don't do the right thing, exclusion is the answer. I argue something very different. Students are hardwired to socialize. They're hardwired to learn. They're sponges. What if we combine those two things? Research shows that students are more likely to take in information when it's from someone that they can relate to. They personalize it and effectively apply it. And so, it can be powerful for academic success and social-emotional well-being. And it can be school-wide. But how? Make the time. Schools often don't have entire curriculum for character education. Our school spends about 30 minutes each day making sure that groups can meet or getting some sort of character education. It has to be put in the day-to-day schedule. You put in the time for things that you prioritize. You have to build up the group. We play icebreakers, cooperative games. We teach them how to work in groups to solve problems. And at the very end, we make sure they apply the learning to a project or activity that either has to do with school or some sort of community service project. And here's Kiara's 6th grade trust circle. If you take a look, they're working on a way to solve her problem. So she's struggling a little bit in math, and so each of the KIPPsters are giving her advice on her plan. Pretty cool. This is one of my favorite pictures. These are our 8th grade girls and their KIPP circles. If you take a look here, their KIPP circle is My Little Pony. I don't know why they chose that. But they do set goals, and they set an entire group goal. They learn how to goal set, check in, reassess. And it takes a lot of teaching. They have to learn how to use data, grades, attendance to create a goal. They create their own SMART goals, which as an adult, I wish someone had taught me. And they check in weekly, reflect, and reassess. The other thing is deliberate practice. Kids need time to practice social-emotional skills. They don't know how to have a difficult conversation. And again, as adults, we don't necessarily know how to do that either. And it's not easy. It's not fun. It's really demanding. but it's repeated a lot and it's under the direction of a teacher. And so these are the things they work on consistently with their peer circles. Changing negative thoughts to more optimistic thoughts, having a difficult conversation with others about risky behavior, and appropriately shouting out their teammates for academic success. And so, kids are hardwired to socialize and to learn. Positive peer pressure does exist. You can be Ian and popular and still get that positive peer pressure. Here's Skylar.
Peer Circle has helped me because we're like a good support system from bottom to top, because instead of me worrying about meeting my goals, we can like work together on it. So instead of me saying, oh, I don't know how I'm gonna meet this goal, we like work together, and I work with two other people, so we usually say, oh, we're gonna meet this goal instead of just doing it alone.
For schools, don't allow students to go it alone, like Skylar said. Have faith in students' ability to influence each other positively, if only given the space and the chance. Thank you.
I like that. And that is true. My wife and I, we have hosted foreign exchange students here in our home. And part of the key ingredient in their success is having a peer group that they work with, right? And it's hard sometimes to imagine how to be responsible for another person's child. But the children were great about accepting our rules and talking with us, right? But we were also actively involved and participated in their lives. So we had one that was an actor. So we went to some of the plays and practices and encouraged him to be with his friends. He graduated from Michigan, University of Michigan last year. We have a student that's in Wisconsin right now who was a long distance runner. So I made sure to attend his track meetings and meet some of his friends on the track team. We got to meet friends that were in the other one's acting group. So just, you know, again, the opportunity to participate in their lives is really good. And you want to do that. Develop rules on what is allowed during the school week, right? So we're talking about setting boundaries, rules. Now I would encourage you that to set those rules up with your children, right? So children all have different ideas and their beliefs most of the time match yours, right? They're working on their independence. So we want to help them to maintain and be independent, not by telling them what they need to do, right? But instead by offering the opportunity to develop the rules so they can demonstrate their ability to manage their behavior and the things that they need to do. And sometimes we need to remind them that, do you think it's a good idea to stay out after a certain amount of time, right? And so you want to give them a chance to answer that before you say, nope, you need to be home at 9 o'clock, that's it, that's all, right? Find out what's going on. Why do you need a later time, right? How is it going to help you with your homework? How does it make things better for you, right? So that you get them to explain logically why it is they need to be out at a later time. What's the reason? Not just hanging out with my friends, right? I always share with my children that while in school, yep, you get to have a lot of fun, but you don't want to create habits that when you got to work, you're going to suddenly miss out on work because you want to go hang out with your friend who's not working. It won't look good. It'll make things difficult for you. So some things to think about, right? When possible, right? Again, if you connected with some parents, right? Some parents may say, hey, you know what? Yeah, I told them they could come and hang out here and do homework and all that other stuff. If you want, I'll drop them off at home. You don't have to worry about picking them up, right? Flexibility with prioritizing schoolwork. Schoolwork is hard, you guys. It's hard. I see kids up to 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning still doing homework, right? And it is crazy to me that their homework is so complex that they're up so late, but they are. So you want to be aware of what's going on. See if maybe they need some help with their schedule, right? So maybe they don't have things balanced out right. And a little coaching on prioritizing, looking at things from a different perspective may help them to get that under control. Parents should take responsibility to predict and alert teen of possible risk and problems. That's what we were talking about, right? You want to be sure that you've given some thought to, okay, so you want to do this, but have you thought about the consequence? What are you going to do if, right? So you want to be able to share that. All right. So how to reduce contact with undesirable peers. And this part becomes really important because we don't always know when somebody is undesirable unless they do something right off the bat that kind of scares us, right? But you want to monitor who your teen spends time with. Again, don't send a private detective out after them. Don't be driving around in the car, following them wherever they walk into and all that. You don't want to do that, right? But you do want to talk to them about what's going on, how was their day, right? Have a real genuine conversation. If you can see that they're struggling, be honest. I'm looking at you. You look like you're struggling to me, like something's gone wrong, right? So why don't you share with me? Maybe I have some ideas. I've been around a little bit longer than you. I might have some ideas as to how you can handle it and do things a little better, right? So you want to make sure if you believe the teen is mixing peers who are bad influencers, right? So you go and get your kid and they're drunk, they smell like alcohol, right? And it's something you haven't talked about, something that may seem as though you are unaware of, right? You want to have that conversation. When did you start drinking? I didn't know you drank. Don't get all mad in a huff, right? Don't start yelling at them or any of those type of things, right? But you want to just know, hey, so when did this start, right? How often has it been going on? And you can't control other people. Just have to be honest with you. You can't control other people. I know a lot of times parents think, hey, you know what? It's my house, my rules, I'm in control. Honestly, I don't know about you, but as a teen, despite my parents' rules, I did plenty of things outside of those rules. But there were plenty of things that we also talked about because I had the kind of parents I could talk to. All right, so red flags in relationships are intuitive indicators that something needs to be questioned, right? Relationship red flags include feelings of insecurity and negative feedback from one's friends and family. And, it's funny because you might be exhibiting a red flag. You might be the very person, right, who is texting somebody 100 times. You might be the person that wants to know where that person is and why they didn't call you, right? And sometimes we have to say that to our children. That's a red flag attitude. You know, you're texting him 4 or 5 times a day. That's a bit much, don't you think? Right? Let him know it's a red flag, right? So those 10 relationship red flags, lack of communication, irresponsible, immature, unpredictable, right? Lack of trust. That means that they don't trust you or you don't trust them. Significant family or friends don't like your partner, right? So you dated this girl and for you, everything seems great, but everybody's like, oh, this is just not the right one. Controlling behavior, right? Manipulative moves, like, oh, you must not like me since you don't want to hang out with me. You just want to hang out with your friends. Well, that's controlling behavior. So you want to be sure that your team, as well as yourself, are aware that, oh, somebody's trying to control me. Feeling insecure in a relationship. Why do you got to wear that, dress that way, talk that way, different things. A dark or secretive past, right? I always say you got to kind of beware of people who are ducking and dodging certain places. I get that you may not want to talk about your past, right? Because it was a dark time, and I'm beyond that. But in all honesty, I've learned that when you've gone through some things and you're building a relationship, it's okay to say, you know what, man, I went through some trying times. And our kids have to know the same thing. It's okay for someone to say, you know what, it was really hard. I made some mistakes. I thought about committing suicide. Okay. How do you feel now? I'm glad you didn't do it, right? So you want to know those things so you can talk about those things and get an idea of where they are now. But it also may help you to understand when they start going through a stage of depression, right? Oh, this person, you know, they've had to deal with some depression in their lives, right? That trauma has now resurfaced. And as that trauma resurfaces, right, it can cause them to kind of withdraw. So in a relationship, it's important for us to know and understand whatever trauma a person may have been in or witnessed. Non-resolution of past relationships, right? This is a tough one because, especially for young people, you heard the young man talking about, are you talking about junior high school? Is that really a relationship, right? For him, it may not have been, but for the young lady who liked him, it could have been, right? It is very possible that she continued on, even while in high school, to be attractive to him, right? Well, he didn't really like me, so I'm going to change my hair. I'm going to lose some weight. I'm going to dress like this so he does like me. It has not been resolved, right? It's not her. And that really is not that it's her. It really was the fact that he didn't know how to say, no, I don't like you that way. He may not have wanted to hurt her feelings, right? Because the question was, have you ever, just for the heck of it? Well, yeah, you know, maybe I didn't want to seem mean, right? So you want to be able to talk about relationships of the past and discover if there's any resolution, right? Does this guy or girl in your child's life have somebody that they used to date keep showing up, right? And are they sneaking off and your son or daughter is concerned that something may be going on? Ask the question. It's okay to ask, right? Is anything going on here? I understand you guys are friends, right? But I also know you dated, right? So let's be real and honest about it. The relationship is built on the need to feel needed, right? But this is one that always bothers me. No one should ever be needed. You should want the other person in your life. They are an inclusion, not a necessity, right? I want to go to the basketball game. You don't want to go to the not a problem. I'll meet up with you after, or I'll see you tomorrow, right? I'm going over to a friend's house. Do you want to join me? Yeah, great. Let's go. We're going to do this together. If I don't feel like going, I don't want to have to go. I want to be able to say, nah, I don't want to go. And you have the right to say the same thing. I don't want to go, right? And there's, the balance is knowing when that person might need your support, right? If I say I'm going to the basketball game and I really want to talk to the coach about joining the team, I could use some support, right? Will you come and support me? That's a different kind of conversation, right? Because now in the relationship, that is the other person supporting me in an area I feel like I'm not so confident in, right? So we want to make sure we check out those red flags. Help to problem solve when things do not work, right? It's important to not jump in and solve problems for your kids. Don't do it. We all want to, right? Because been there, done that is our attitude. But the truth is, we haven't really been there and done that in that generation. My generation, I didn't have a cell phone to text on, right? In fact, my generation was before the pager came out. So communicating as teens was done different, and we were segregated, right? We were segregated in groups by music, by sports, by academics, right? We segregated in those senses and ideas. So it's important not to try and jump up and have a solution for a problem that your child comes to you with, right? Encourage them to start looking at some of those answers. Make some suggestions. It might be some things that you tried to do, right? And we know, as we were talking about modern technology does not always allow you to get away, right? During my era, if I didn't want to have to confront somebody, I could just avoid them, walk a different way home from school and to school, right? I didn't have a device where they might text me, what's going on? How come you're not calling? But so on and so forth, right? So opening that door where you can have that conversation, non-judgmental, I have to express that, right? Because if you're telling them, well, you shouldn't have did this, right? Oh my God, how could you do that, right? It's not gonna work. They're never gonna open up to you and share with you the whole story. Likewise, it may happen the same way if you try to criticize the other person, right? Sometimes it's just sitting back and kind of letting things take its course. I shared with my youngest daughter, a young man that took her to the prom. I did not like this young man, but I could not say anything. I asked questions, oh, you like him? How did you guys meet? Right? We went through all of that. And when I went to go pick her up, she called me, right? And I went to go pick him up. And she says, oh yeah, just take him home, Dad. Okay. I drop him off. He gets out the car, wait for him to go inside. And as we're driving, she says to me, he is such a jerk. You're never going to see him again. And you guys, you don't know, I was so excited, jumping up and down inside that she said that, but I had to allow her to discover that for herself, right? And part of it was my time spent with her in showing her how she should be treated, right? When she started recognizing that he didn't do anything for me, everything was about him, right? And then he was mean to a waitress. She said, he's just not a nice guy. I don't think he's the guy for me, right? And I was like, wow, okay. And I allowed her to talk to me further without really saying anything or being judgmental. I just shared that with her the other night, in fact. So what to do if your teen has problems, right? These are really important. Make time to talk to your teen. Don't turn your phone off. Anybody who wants to, let everybody else be secondary, right? Make time to talk to your teenager. Let's talk. Let's go get a milkshake, a hamburger, whatever. Let's talk, me and you, right? That's it. And in fact, right, you can say anything you want to. I'm not gonna hold it against you. You won't get in trouble for it, right? So even if you're upset with me, just let me know that you're upset. Have that talk. Allow them that portion of it, right? Don't make them feel weak if they're being bullied or anything like that, right? Be sympathetic, be empathetic. Make sure that you convey that, you know what, I'm on your side. I love you. What do you want me to do? You know, sometimes our children and people tell us things, not because they want us to solve them or do anything. They need somebody to talk to, right? Sometimes we need to say, do you want me to answer this or do you just want me to listen? So we do. So we listen with love and attentiveness. And then when the time comes, we provide an opportunity to have that discussion. All right, so got another video. Listen to what your teen has to say before you give advice, right? So we're gonna learn just how intelligent and mature our children can be.
I'm in high school, college. High school.
High school.
College. High school. I'm in middle school. Abuse comes in many different forms.
It can be more subtle or it can be in your face.
If someone has control over someone else.
I think that there's some misconceptions about abuse among teens and college students. I think the first thing people think of is physical abuse, and so we ignore the emotional and verbal aspects of it and the digital aspects such as texting, and just think of that as normal behavior.
Texting, it can become an invasion of your privacy, and it can be used as a form of control.
Where are you? Who are you with? What are you doing?
Texting can also become abusive when, let's say, one partner is sending, nude pictures. It becomes a breach of their trust and boundaries.
At least in my school, young people do not know what abuse is.
The truth is, I don't think everybody can recognize the signs while they're in an unhealthy or abusive relationship.
Maybe this is just normal for everybody else. If my boyfriend or girlfriend is putting me down, is constantly texting me.
They've probably been working on making you feel bad about yourself for a while, or afraid, or they've threatened you.
It's hard to talk about it.
It's not something that you talk about in school or anywhere.
It can be really difficult to tell a friend or parent what's going on because they may just tell you to leave and maybe you're not ready to leave.
People who are in abusive relationships believe that what they want to do is be in that relationship. They want to be with that person and then it's all going to magically work out in the end. But, the reality is that it won't. And I think that most people don't realize that the consequences of serious abuse is that either your life is ruined, you get pregnant, you die.
I have a friend who's experienced abuse.
Yeah, I've experienced dating abuse when I was in high school, and I know friends who have as well.
I had a friend, and she was very mentally abusive to every boy she would go out with.
I was actually in an abusive relationship.
My girlfriend constantly was talking to my friends and telling them, hey, don't talk to him, he's mine.
I told her she was being abusive, and she didn't believe me.
I fell for the star football player, and at first I thought it was so sweet that he wanted to walk me to my next class, but from there it just escalated. It wasn't him being kind to me, it was him controlling me and making sure he knew my every move. I thought that it was normal and that what I was feeling
this sadness and this isolation was something to be expected. He would tell me all the time what a terrible person my father was.
And it got to the point where I stopped hanging out with my friends and I stopped hanging out with my family and I didn't really have anyone. And I felt like I was kind of losing myself.
It was difficult and I needed the help of my family a little bit. I didn't know how to get help or how to get out of it. It was up to my father to end it. I would like to tell the young people who are in an abusive relationship that, you aren't alone. You can get help.
Ask them if they know they're in an abusive relationship, and if they deny it, give them the red flags and the warning signs.
Help them get to the point where they'll have the confidence to leave the relationship, because ultimately they're the ones who are going to have to leave.
I'm here to listen to what's going on. I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to provide resources for you, look things up on the internet.
I would tell them to go to loveisrespect.org.
Organizations where you feel like you have people to fall back on and have your back, even if it's really, really hard.
Because sometimes love is blind and you just don't see what other people see, that it's hurting you more than bring you happiness. Listen to yourself, know yourself, become aware of your boundaries, and don't be afraid to speak up about them and don't ever compromise them.
You deserve healthy and loving relationships. For all those parents out there, I would say break the ice. We look up to you more than you know, and even when we don't show it, it means so much to us when you give us your advice.
And I think it's really important to be an active bystander. We need to be there to support each other and let our peers know, even if we think they already know they're worth it, or that their parents tell them that, or they hear it from someone, just say it anyways.
Kids need to start talking. Start talking.
Start talking.
Start talking. Start talking.
It's time to start talking.
All right. So yeah, a lot of times kids want us to talk to them, right? They want to hear what we have to say. And so it becomes important that we do have that conversation. And so, throughout I was giving some ideas of how we can start that conversation, right? So we can start small, start early, right? It's never too early, right? I know a lot of times we want to try and avoid talking about certain things, right? Everybody has what they believe is the right time to have the sex talk or to talk about dating, right? And we want to say to kids, hey, you're too young to date. Don't talk to me about it right now, right? But if that is the conversation, that means that there's something going on, right? And too many times, young people are shoved aside, and then we do wind up with young people getting pregnant early in life, making some horrible mistakes because the person that they needed to talk to just simply shoved them off and said, you know what, you're not old enough. We're not going to talk about this. My rules, my house. No, right? You don't want to do that. You do want to start early. You don't have to jump right into the whole sex thing, but it's okay to say, hey, oh, you like this person, right? So when we like someone, right, we make sure that we respect them, right? We say kind words to them. So you give them ideas of how they should treat people and how people should treat them, right? Manage expectations. Don't expect an 11-year-old to be as intuitive and as smart as a 16 or 17-year-old, right? Don't expect that because I told you not to do this, that's just going to happen that way, right? So you want to manage your expectations and their expectations, right? I would tell you as parents, you should shock your children by not over responding to the things they say, right? The less you respond, the more they will talk to you, right? They say and do things to get shock and awe. And when they don't get shock and awe, right, you'd be surprised. They may even change the way they dress. Plan in advance when possible to have that conversation, right? It's okay to say, hey, let's go out to lunch. I want to talk to you. Let's go to lunch, right? So on your end, you get a chance to plan that out, have that lunch, have that conversation, right? Set physical boundaries. We got 11, 12-year-old wanting to date 14-year-old, right? Talk about what the boundaries are, right? What don't we do? Talk about, it's okay. Maybe we should talk with her or his parents, see what they think so that we're all on the same page and, nobody's feeling uncomfortable because you're holding hands, right? Or you're hugging, but you want to set those physical boundaries. Come up with an exit strategy. This is what I was talking about earlier, that exit strategy where if one person feels uncomfortable because they're out with the group, right, or even with another person, right, they send out a text. It can be 411 or it can be an X. It can be a C for call, right? Whatever you establish. And then you follow through with the plan of, oh, I need to call, right? So before we say what's going on, we want to be able to say, hey, I need you to come home, right? We have a situation, I need you to come home and we'll talk about it when you get here. I'm going to come and pick you up. So they can say to that person, oh, man, you know what? I got to go. My mom or my dad is coming to get me. They said something's going on at home, right? Now they get a chance to get out of an uncomfortable situation, okay? So you want to design an exit strategy. And you want to talk to them about it so that they know that they don't have to stay in a place where they feel uncomfortable. All right, so starting the conversation, let's take a look and see what that may sound like. Again, everybody is different. This is just one way.
Hey Stella, what you looking at?
Oh, just Instagram. Jenna just posted a picture with Logan. I guess they're dating now.
Interesting. Are you excited for her? I didn't know kids your age are dating already.
Well, some are, and I think I'm excited for Jenna. I just hope that Logan treats her the right way.
I'm glad you brought that up. New relationships can be exciting, but on the other hand, they can be confusing too. It's good to have a healthy picture of what a relationship looks like.
I'm sure Jenna knows that. Obviously, no one wants an unhealthy relationship.
That's true. Do you know what a healthy relationship looks like?
I think so. I mean, I know that you're supposed to be honest with the other person.
Well, that's a good start, but there's a lot more to it than that. A healthy relationship is established on well-known boundaries, trust, honesty, support, and good communication.
That seems like a lot of work.
It can be. But these are important things when it comes to a good friendship or relationship.
I get it, but what if the other person doesn't want to talk about these things?
Well, then you have to let them know how important it is to you, and maybe they'll be willing to talk. Relationships are give and take. It takes both people working together to support and listen to one another. Both people need to work together in a relationship to be close.
Okay, but I'm still in school, so do my relationships really have to be that serious?
No, of course not, Stella. I'm just letting you in on a few tips so that your relationships can be more positive, whether they're serious or not.
Okay, I get that, Dad. Thanks. Maybe I'll even mention that to Jenna tomorrow.
Hey, Dad, I talked to Jenna today.
Really? How did it go?
Good. Her and her dad had already talked about healthy relationships. Her dad said the same thing you did.
Really? Well, I'm glad you had the confidence to share that with her. Looks like you're already on your way to having a healthy relationship.
I think so, too. Thanks, Dad.
Right. I don't know that every conversation is going to be that easy, right? But that's the general idea of how you want to have that conversation with your team, right? So, coach your team how to make friends by explaining important aspects. So, in the video, we got a chance to see how Dad explained some of the rules around identifying if you're in a good relationship. And the young lady went and talked to her friend, and her dad had already talked to her about the same thing. So these are some basic things, right? Creating opportunities to spend time with peers, sharing common interests, right? Place regularly, spending some time and the space, right? So sometimes we have to have a safe space in our house for our kids to meet with their friends, right? And without interference. So we might just provide some potato chips or other type of snacks, right? So they can talk, relax, and just feel comfortable. Even if we're listening to the conversation, we don't have to participate in it. So ask your team to think about the places they go and identify people who perhaps could be their friends, right? When we moved, my daughter was struggling a little bit. I'll never forget because I really put some pressure on her as she was complaining about not having friends. And I said, look, here's what you do. Each day, take a few minutes, identify somebody, and just walk over to them and introduce yourself. And she did. And I turned around and she had a bunch of friends. And within a couple of weeks, they were coming over here. She was going over there. They were doing the whole night, spending the night over each other's house. It was just great. So ask what your team knows about the person, right? If your team is still interested in having them as friends, then problem solve to find ways to spend more time with them. And again, if there's an issue there, as we saw that the kids talk about in the earlier video, they don't always want to end the relationship, right? They don't always want to end the relationship. Sometimes they need a workaround, right? I had friends I didn't always hang out with. It was for a few minutes here and there. Sometimes one day a week. Some friends are just a monthly friend. Other friends are annual friends. See them once a year, and that's enough. I don't need to see them more. Some friends I love to see on a regular basis. So it's important that we help our children to identify workarounds and how to develop each and every different type of relationship. Funny thing I want to share with you guys is I was in a group conversation, and the question regarding relationships was it transactional or transformative, right? So is a relationship that you're in a transactional relationship? That is to say, do we get something from the person we're in the relationship with? That's a transaction, right? So I have a friend, he has a car. I need to get a ride to school. So he picks me up. I give him $5 for gas. That's a transactional relationship. A transformal or transformational relationship is we are friends, right? And my friend helps me to elevate my thinking process So my academics are better, and I do the same thing with him or her. So as we communicate and talk, we are improving our character. We are making each other better people. That's a transformational relationship. So when dating, right, the idea of, are you dating in a transactional relationship where you're dating a guy or a girl because they're the prom queen, football or basketball star, right? Or just because they're making the good grades and you need some help with the homework? Or are you dating this person because they are a transformational person? They help you in making yourself better. They support you in the things that you want to do, and they give you ideas on how you can improve and work with you in getting there. Transaction or transitional, right? Just some food for thought. Common problems, the teen doesn't want to make friends, right? So we can't control or make anybody do anything, but we want people to have friends. Some people they aren't social butterflies, right? My wife is a social butterfly. I once told someone, I said, when we go to a party, my wife, as a social butterfly, wants to speak to everyone, right? I'm good. I can walk in the door and say, hey, everybody, right? I'm done. That's good enough for me. But she wants to have a personal conversation. So I have to do something with my time, right? While she gets her social activity in. So I'll find somebody, one or two somebody, and I can have a conversation with them. I don't need to talk to everyone, right? Technically, I don't even want to talk to everyone. But in our relationship, right, the way I support her is by making sure that she gets the time that she needs to make that connection with people. So we want to be able to understand our children, right? And our children oftentimes are a reflection of us. If we only have 2 or 3 friends, our children are probably going to only have 2 or 3. They may have more associates, right? But they may only have 2 or 3 close friends that they confide in, that they tend to do a lot more with. So be aware that it's okay for your teen if they want to be kind of by themselves, right? But you do want to encourage them to seek people who have similar interests, right? And do that. If your teen will not tell you about their friends, right? I know this says to check with another adult. If you haven't made friends with other adults, it can be challenging. The key is to try and not be judgmental, right? The expression of, I love you. I want to kind of be a part of your life, right? Non-judgmental, right? So tell me about John. What does he like? I see he drives, I don't know, a Ford truck. Does he like trucks, or does he also like cars, right? Or is he a 4-wheel drive kind of person, right? What type of things does he like to do? Is he active in sports, music, right? Metal shop, can he weld? Carpentry, can he build stuff? What does he like to do? May discover that he does concrete with his dad on the weekend. I was that kid. Most of my friends' parents didn't understand. And I said, well, my dad's in construction, so a lot of times Saturday mornings weren't my own. They were my dad's. My dad would say, we're gonna go do this work. And that's where I would be. All right, so what to do when your teenager is out of control? Look at this, and we are doing pretty good on time.
It can drive you nuts. What do you do when your teenager is out of control? I've got a special guest to help fill us in on just that. Brock Matthews is a Live on Purpose certified coach.
That's right.
And he knows some things about this because it's not that long ago that you were a teen.
Oh yeah. Yep.
It's a lot more recently than for me.
Yeah.
So what do we do with an out of control teenager?
First thing to understand is what is there to control. You have your teen and you have you. What are you in control of and what's your teen in control of? Now they're getting older, they're gonna have more control, right?
Brock, you know what? You just nailed something, because it's all about control. Even as we introduce this topic today, what do you do when your teenager's out of control?
Yeah.
Right? So there's this control issue. And some things you control and other things you don't.
Right. And so a lot of the times when we feel like our teen is acting out of control, it's actually because we're not in control of them. And so when we see that they are making bad choices, we feel like they're out of control.
And you know what? I've done this exercise sometimes with parents in my office where we make a T chart, so that if you can just picture a great big capital T, and at the top of one column, you put your name. At the top of the other column, you put your teenager's name. And then you start listing under that everything that you control about your teenager's life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they realize things really quickly.
Right. And so luckily, the teen wants the things that we control, and we want to be able to control the teen. And so we can trade those two lists.
Can we hit some examples around that?
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking how this usually plays out.
Mm-hmm.
What are mom and dad concerned about?
Good choices.
Good choices, like what are they doing with school?
Mm-hmm.
How are they handling themselves with friends, or around the issues of substances, or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And guess whose list all of those things are on? The teens.
Right.
Right? But that's what mom and dad want. Well, what do the kids want? And I think you said earlier, well, the kids want to have some freedom, some control over their own life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So who controls that kid's access to telecommunications?
Parents.
For example. Oh, that's on the parents list.
Transportation is parents too.
Transportation. What you provide, basically, as a parent. That's what you control.
Right, exactly.
And you might be thinking, you know what? I don't control anything about my teen's life. Well, you don't control the things you're concerned about. But you do control things that your teens are concerned about.
The second point I want to touch on is the discipline. Discipline needs to feel like it's not happening at all. And so what I like to do, or teach the parents to do, is sit down and figure out what the teen wants and be clear about what your expectations are.
You know, Brock, you're hitting on another really important topic here, and that's communication.
Right.
Because even though we're talking about discipline, we're talking about discipline with a teenager.
Right.
And you know what? I can't tell you how many parents have come to my office and they're like, Dr. Paul, this is not my kid. He's doing this and he's doing that. And I'm like, you're right. It's not your kid. It's your teenager.
We have to remember that their bodies are going out of control. Hormones are out of control. Their appetite, girls and boys are losing cooties. They don't know what's going on either. And so we need to remember and understand, those teenage years were hard, and we need to be patient with them and understand that.
And they're different from childhood in a lot of really important ways. So this communication element, you said sit down with them and talk to them. Right. Now, a little disclaimer here. Who controls whether your teenager is willing to sit down with you? Your teenager.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Right? So they might refuse. And there's ways to handle that too, because we go back to our list of what it is that we control. And then we use that to encourage a conversation. I love what you're saying here, Brock, because once you get a communication started where we're actually sharing real ideas and your teenager is able to do some thinking that your kid wasn't able to do, that gives us a basis for setting up the transaction.
Right. What is important is when the teenager feels like there's no discipline, when the parent sits down and the teenager sits down and is clear and concise about what the rules are and what happens when they get broken. And so when they make good choices, they get rewarded with resources. When they make bad choices, they're clear on what's going to happen if those choices are made. and now they can't be mad at you because they agreed on the punishment.
There's another powerful element here that comes from the psychology of this whole thing.
Right.
So as a parent, let's just establish this right now. You are a benevolent, generous, loving, positive parent. And that's important because you're not going to take anything away. No, we're not taking anything away. We are making things available depending on the choice of our teenager. Do you hear the difference there? And it sometimes feels like the same thing. You know, like, well, if I don't do my homework, then you're going to take my phone away.
Right.
We just switch that enough that it feels like the phone is available to you when or if.
Right.
Do you hear that subtle difference?
Yeah. I'd like to share a story. When I was a young, out of control teenager, I had a filthy habit of slamming a door when I was upset. So my parents sat down with me and said, look, this is a problem. We need to fix it. What happens next time you slam the door? And I thought and said, well, you can take my door away. And so me as an out of control teenager, like to test my parents, next fight, slammed the door. I came home the next day, there was no door.
And it triggered some thinking, didn't it?
Right. And what did I have to do to get my door back? Well, my parents said, okay, well, you broke the door, and so you need to pay for that door. And so I had to work and do what was necessary in order to earn my door back.
I see a number of powerful elements here.
Right.
First of all, you might be thinking, okay, but if I ever did that with my teenager, I'd have a fight on my hands. But Brock, you pointed out that the communication happened.
Right.
There was a communication beforehand you came up with.
I was aware of what was going to happen.
And you knew that it was inappropriate to slam doors.
I did.
But as a teenager, it's hard to control your behaviors and your emotions sometimes. Right. So that communication actually put you in a position where you were able to accept the consequence.
Right. I was only mad at myself.
And you learned something from it.
Right.
Brock, we've had a couple of good ideas that have come through. I think it comes down to a really basic assumption that parents are actually valuable to their teenagers, and teenagers are actually valuable to their parents.
Right.
And I think if both parties understood that,
yeah,
it would be easier to arrange some of these exchanges that we've been talking about.
Right.
Around the discipline.
Right.
What have you noticed about the value?
Well, I have noticed parents are very valuable to their teenagers. The teenagers just don't want to admit that.
Oh, good point.
They are learning and they want to do things for themselves, and they're learning how to be adults, and they don't want to ask for help sometimes. The good thing is that teenagers can also be valuable to the parents. Sometimes it feels like teenagers are just sucking all the resources, the gas, the food, the time, the energy.
All the stuff the parents are providing.
Right, exactly. But we can also use the teenagers to get done some of the things that we need to and have them pull some of the weight around the house.
You know what? I've seen so many teenagers have the lights go on when they realize they have something to offer, something that is really valuable to the parents. And you're starting a conversation here about, hey, they could do some things around the house. They're very capable of contributing in some meaningful ways. But it's more than that for the parents, because you think about what the parents really value. And as a parent, what is it that you want? A slave? No. You want your teenager to be making good, mature choices. Now, if you're a teenager watching this, I hope the lights just went on. Because for you to do that is enormously valuable to your parents, and they've already proven to you that they're willing to provide all kinds of luxury.
Parents are usually really generous towards teenagers as long as they're doing what they want. Teenagers can also use to get a little bit more if they help parents get what they need.
It's an exchange. Economics. There you go.
For example, I have a story. I was driving a really old 89 Honda Accord in high school, and it got me back and forth from school, but I wanted something more. I went to my dad and said, Dad, I want a new truck. And he said, okay, well, that's going to cost a little bit of money out of my pocket unless you're going to go get a job. And I said, I can't go get a job. And so he said, I will help you pay for the truck if you help me do the yard work. It's going to cost me however much money a month. So if you do the yard work, I can put that money towards your truck. And so we had a little transaction there.
Yeah. Hopefully that's helpful to you. You may know of some other parents who would appreciate this video, or some teenagers who need to hear from Brock. You can connect with Brock and our other Live on Purpose coaches at liveonpurpose.coach, where you'll find.
All right. So points to remember: parents can have mixed feelings about their teens' friends. Things you can do, guys: take a deep breath, right? And just kind of relax. Our kids will say some things you may want to react, but don't. Really take a deep breath. Save the life lessons for another time, right? Try not be so sensitive to what's going on with your children, because you want to try and be there to be supportive for them as they work their way through it, right? You can influence how they spend their time, who they spend their time with, right? All through that character building. Acknowledge and appreciate their honesty, right? So in Triple P, the way we get to our children's behavior issues is by acknowledging that not only is it an issue, but acknowledging when they do well, right? So the ability to say, you know what, I'm so glad you stopped seeing that person, right? You may have a conversation that says, well, why didn't you say anything? It's because I didn't want to do anything to violate your choice, right? So I didn't say anything. But I'm glad you were able to see that that person wasn't the person for you. And you don't have to go through and list all of those things, you know, oh yeah, he's this, he was that. No, you don't have to do that. Just acknowledge that, you know what, you made a smart decision, and man, it was just great, you know. I'm glad you did it. Be prepared to limit contact with certain peers and encourage contact with those who are good influencers, right? I'll never forget my mom on one of my birthdays invited some friends that were kind of close, and she knew they were close because we were friends since elementary school. And just before graduation, she invited them to the house, and we had a really nice dinner. She wanted us to have an adult type dinner. We had oyster Rockefeller. She did a nice salad. She did I don't know if you know what they're called, but they're grape leaves that have rice and seasoned meat in them. She did some port wine apples. It was just a great dinner for us to have, and they never forgot that. So sometimes you want to be able to influence the children in your life through different means, right? This is one more thing. I really wanted to share this. It won't be long, and then we'll be open for questions.
I just didn't pay him any attention.
Geraldine Chambers giggles as she reflects on her marriage to her husband, Willie. It's been nearly a century since they met.
I've known her ever since she's around 4 years old.
Willie is 99 and his sassy bride is 98 years young. Mr. Chambers remembers the moment he finally mustered up the courage to share his feelings.
As memory served me, on a fifth Sunday.
In the late 1930s, church and school was the only place the two could snag a glimpse of each other. Mrs. Chambers, well, she didn't make it too easy.
One of my classmates told me, there's somebody that wants to talk to you. I said, who? That's all right. Don't worry about who. You'll find out.
In his wife, Mr. Chambers says he's found what God intended for him to have. and the last 8 decades was a choice he made every day.
Well, when you have a helper and very persuasive, it's not hard.
So what's the secret to longevity?
I dare not tell you.
But in any relationship,
The marriage hasn't always been cream and honey.
you find something about your mate that you can't live without.
One thing I love about her, she's bossy.
I'm glad you said that.
I don't know, she grows on you.
And they say you realize that's the secret.
The world is hers as far as I'm concerned.
And doing life only makes sense with each other.
I guess I love her because she's Geraldine.
Reporting in Essex, Megan Rivers, WBAL TV 11 News.
I think it's always good to kind of end on a good note. 80 years of marriage, there's quite a few of them out there. I remember in my church, they held a contest, and there were people who had been married anywhere from 50 to 80 plus years, and I thought that was amazing. My older sister is married to my brother-in-law, who has been in her life since they were 12 years old. And they will be making 80 this year. So I just wanted to share that. So are there any questions? Any questions? Any questions? No questions?